Okay. I am very happy you're all coming in, and I'm honored to introduce Adam Jaworski as our first keynote speaker. Adam Jaworski is Emeritus Professor and Honorary Professor at the School of English at the University of Hong Kong. His contributions to sociolinguistics are wide-ranging and concerned with how language, power, and identity intersect with public and institutional contexts. He's done seminal work on the pragmatics of silence. Recent contributions include, for example, perspectives on the commodification of silence in luxury tourism advertising. He's written influential texts on discursive and multimodal approaches to tourism, mobility, and globalization. And he's played a foundational role in establishing the field of semiotic landscape research, examining the way language, as he writes, interacts with other discursive modalities, including the visual images, nonverbal communication, architecture, and the built environment. Two of my personal favorites are the 2015 paper Globalese, a new visual linguistic register, a must-read for all typographers interested in punctuation marks and understanding how they relate to big perspectives of our world. The analysis of writing on clothing, for example, in Words We Wear, co-authored with Jackie Liu in 2021. He is the co-founder of the Journal of Social Linguistics, and in 2015, he co-edited the first special issue on typographic landscaping with Johan Jellehed, highlighting the role that typography and the materiality of visible language play as, I quote, historically stratified and geographically distributed social action in cityscapes. Today, he will talk about sculptural place names between elitism and egalitarianism in high-value urban spaces. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Professor Adam Jaworski.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. I need to set up my iPad here and try to make sure I can navigate the laptop with my presentation. Can you all hear me? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you once again. Thank you very much for this kind introduction, Irmi. I feel a bit apprehensive about giving this talk at the first institutional space which recognized typography as an academic discipline. Anyway, thank you, Irmi, Yanis, and Jerry for your kind invitation for me to be here. It's a very it's a huge privilege and a pleasure. And thank you all for coming this morning on this hot day. I'll start briefly by situating my talk. Okay, I think that's right. In terms of the work I've been pursuing in the last 20 years or so, originating from some collaborative work with my colleague and friend Crispin Thurlow on language and globalization in the context of tourism and mobility by choice, my own work on typographic and orthographic displays in public space, as well as text-based art. I have been interested in the stylistic and generic manifestations of what Crispin and I have called banal globalism. What we mean by that is those everyday ways that the global is performatively enacted through ordinary, seemingly innocuous, everyday ways that the global is performatively enacted through ordinary, seemingly innocuous textual practices and other semiotic means. We followed others in this work, sociologists, Szerszyński and Ary, on their work on banal cosmopolitanism, geographers Paul Knox on global metropolitanism, Doreen Massey on a global sense of place, or what Thurlow and Aiello have called the global semioscape. To quote another geographer, Paul Davidson, for me, though predominantly from a largely discursive and semiotic perspective, all these terms are concerned with a critique of, and I quote, urban spaces, functions, people, and places that have been imbued with global identity, or maybe even more accurately, with the ideology of globalization. Provided that my and others' work on discourse and globalization has concerned mostly the fabrication and manifestations of elite status and social privilege, my analysis of the urban genre I identify here as three-dimensional or sculptural place names is also embedded in asking questions about the contexts and consequences of emplacing these typographical objects in mostly urban spaces. I will return briefly to this point in my conclusion. Blank the PowerPoint for a moment, sorry. Sculptural place names are large, typically human-size, freestanding, three-dimensional letter forms. They are displayed in public, in outdoor and indoor spaces. They are largely symbolic or metonymic rather than indexical or directional. They reference or run across different scale levels from countries, towns and cities, regions to urban districts. They can be found in high-value urban centers, squares, leisure and tourism spaces, commercial areas such as shopping malls, airports, beaches, and waterfronts, occasionally elevated on hills and mountain tops. What I exclude here are related 3D typographical objects or signs derived from the names of services and institutions such as shopping malls, department stores, residential buildings, office blocks, hotels, universities, parks, and so on. Apart from the highly decorative and symbolic form, the function is often indexical and does not encourage participant interaction the way 3D toponyms do. As I have suggested, sculptural place names have sprung up in towns and cities all over the world. It is possible that the one to have started a global trend of accessible street-level name sculptures was Amsterdam, installed around 2004 in Museum Plain, Amsterdam's hub of major cultural institutions and tourist attractions, such as the Rijksmuseum, Van Gogh Museum, Stedelijk Museum, and Concertgebouw. The sign became a popular landmark with a reported daily 6,000 selfies taken at the site. However, it seems to have become a victim of its own success. While initially intended as a symbol of inclusion and diversity, the sign indeed attracted large numbers of mass tourists, and its popularity turned out to be an apparent problem for the high culture image of the city. Subsequently, the sign was removed and relocated somewhere in 2018. The story of the I Amsterdam sculpture encapsulates a particular tension that I want to explore in this presentation. On the one hand, sculptural place names manifest the meaning potential of accessibility, hence egalitarianism, due to their design and material affordances. On the other hand, their placement in high-value, gentrifying urban areas or transportation hubs, such as airports, suggests a more elitist stance, signifying exclusivity. This talk, then, is an attempt to contribute to the growing literature on discourse and gentrification associated with the work of David Harvey and Sharon Zukin from some 40 years ago, and continuing till today among many social scientists and cultural critics. Again, I'll invoke some of this literature briefly in my conclusion. Analytically and conceptually, I situate this presentation in light of the social semiotic approach to the study of three-dimensional objects and their affordances, inspired by Günter Kress and Theo van Leeuwen's seminal study or textbook, Reading Images, and by Jill Abusnuga and David Machin's book on the semiotics of monuments, published in 2013. So very briefly, my talk will be structured as follows. I'll first talk about the three-dimensional semiotics very quickly. The idea of democratization of public art and heritage, description and analysis of semiotics of sculptural place names will follow the categories of size and emplacement, typography, spelling, color, materiality, and composition. And then I'll move on to my conclusion. And if there is a little bit of time, I'll squeeze in a coda at the end. Okay. In the interest of time, please forgive me to skip some of the information on this slide. What I think is most important here for us is point number 3 on the slide. This is the potential, that is the potential for three-dimensional objects to be read or used as facilitated or inhibited by their environmental conditions, narrowing down feasible interpretations or interactive engagement. As we will see, sculptural place names are clearly meant to facilitate engagement beyond purely ocular. Additionally, Kress and van Leeuwen note that unlike two-dimensional objects, the third dimension creates a relation between representational structure and the position of the viewer. Not unlike in other aspects of sociolinguistics, these are horizontal relations of symmetry, that is, solidarity or distance, and vertical relations of asymmetry, respectively, in terms of involvement and detachment, and power as in authority and submission. Okay, so three-dimensional objects can foster all these kind of relations between us as viewers and themselves. Since the middle of the 20th century, many cities around the world have witnessed a proliferation of public art whose ethos has gradually shifted away from that of elitist, vertical, immense, heroic, masculinist, bombastic, and elevated commemorative structures towards more understated, abstract, horizontal, wider, lower, less didactic, multisensory and polyphonic, more inclusive and participatory installations and monuments. Well, this trend may be reversed by Donald Trump right now, but we'll see. Maybe that will be a theme for us next year. For example, in their study of British war monuments, Abusnuga and Machin observed that figures of soldiers used to be typically placed in an elevated position on pedestals, on top of the steps, or behind a gate of some sort. All that meant to establish their imagery as idealized, mythical, often godlike heroes. Nowadays, figures of soldiers are placed closer to the ground, suggesting a more humanized and individualized vision, emphasizing the soldier's own suffering and vulnerability, creating a more involved, even intimate relationship with the viewer. Late modernity brought about a shift from the aloof, highly elevated monuments to ground level. Egalitarian monuments can be seen across newly regenerated city centers, riverside developments, and gentrified post-industrial areas. New urban piazzas, waterfronts, and pedestrianized shopping streets are commonly dotted with street-level bronze statues of standing, walking, or sitting local cultural heroes. For example, the Beatles in Liverpool or Rocky in Philadelphia. Also featured are common men and women representing local heritage, a mixed race working class couple with a dog in Cardiff. Yeah. And men, women, and children and their pets in Hong Kong. Hope you can reasonably see the images. The emplacement of this sculpture at ground level conjures up imagery of down-to-earth realism and accessibility. In an earlier paper, I discussed public interactions with Robert Indiana's Love sculpture in Philadelphia. I suggested that in the moments of posing for a photograph, members of the public, such as a romantic couple, a group of friends, or a man with his bike, are all able to appropriate the image and use it as an expression of their mutual attraction and emotional attachment for each other. In the same manner, some of the sculptural place names provide an opportunity for members of the public to become one with the actual places the names stand for. For example, I, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, I, B, Kobe, I am in Causeway Bay. Okay, so this is in Causeway Bay, which is a shopping area in Hong Kong. And if you look close enough, you can see the design of this sign includes two footprints to encourage pedestrians to stand and pose for a photograph as the pronoun I. Okay. Thus, the structure of the sign, especially the pronoun I, and the public taking over of the sign's footprint make it a perfect shifter in Jacobson's terms. Its meaning changing depending on who steps inside or over the sculpture. The next slide comes with a slight health warning. I'm really not happy to be saying that because I think it's a little too common these days, but anyway, here it is. This is reminiscent of Robert Morris's 1960 installation, The Eye Box. In this position, the subject not only reduces all symbolic distance between self and the object, but also asserts a degree of symbolic power over it. If we go back to the previous slide and look at the Eye Amsterdam image quickly, once again. It's a problem with PowerPoint or the screens that they just reduce the resolution. Sorry, thank you. Anyway, I hope you can see a man assuming that precise position. Thankfully, he's fully clothed. Suggesting complete self-identification with the city or its toponym, and possibly symbolic dominance over it. Okay, so okay, thank you, Robert Morris. Okay, the semiotics of sculptural place names I'm going to discuss once again in terms of the size and emplacement, spelling, typography, color, and materiality, finishing with composition. A sign's emplacement, or the way it is positioned in the material world, is one of the fundamental properties responsible for how we come to interpret and relate to it. It is therefore part of a sign's affordance and hence its meaning potential. One of the oldest and best known sculptural place names is the Hollywood sign, originally Hollywood Land in Hollywood Hills in Hollywood. Originally erected in 1923 as a temporary advertisement for a real estate development, it soon became a landmark and a popular tourist attraction. However, the larger-than-life dimensions of the sign and its relative inaccessibility make it near impossible for anyone to scale it up, not to mention manage a selfie next to it. Otherwise, tourists can purchase a few minutes with powerful binoculars, a postcard, or a 3D model encrusted with pretend diamonds indexing Hollywood glamour. Three-dimensional objects on a human scale can be approached in close proximity and from different angles. The ability for people to stand in front or behind, above or below, up close or at a distance from a material sign provides semiotic options for those who view them. In this slide here, we can see a number of relationships enacted between the social participants and signs ranging from dominance and power, as already been mentioned, involvement, standing within or sitting on the sign, slight detachment, standing next to the sign, and so on in other combinations of proximity. All of this behavior by social actors are examples of consuming of place and performance of self-positionality as elite, knowing, privileged travelers or social media influencers. As a feature of visual grammar, font types have aesthetic and psychological implications for readers. In respect of sculptural place names, typography constitutes a visual texturing of a projected affect. I apologize for missing a slide with some particularly salient examples that I should have included here, but I'm sure you can imagine uses of, for example, Celtic or Basque typography in some of the relevant place names, which kind of create additional symbolic meaning of the signs. On a more generic level, away from such cultural symbolism, if place name sculptures represent vernacular forms of visual art, then we might expect their typography to reflect a popular, if not populist, outlook. Indeed, the vast majority of my examples feature sans serif fonts, which are visually lighter, contemporary, and arguably espousing an approachable stance, exuding a modern technocratic feel. Inevitably, there are several instances of 3D place name sculptures with serif fonts, which are weightier, connoting tradition, hence authority. Serifs, as a throwback to traditional print culture, may also invoke a sense of artfulness and historicity. Most signs appear in uppercase, suggesting making a bold statement. The ones in lowercase letters or combination of upper and lowercase seem a bit more understated, with the connotations of informality and accessibility. Another attempt of shifting away from the heavy and heroic monuments can be observed in 3D place name sculptures, which employ literally lighter fonts, such as hollowed out letter outlines or mesh-like transparent surfaces. Relatively few signs display italic or stylized handwriting. Cursive font in Hello Hungry suggests a link with spoken communication. On the other hand, Stanley Plaza, Love by the Sea in Hong Kong, belongs to the Asian kawaii or cute aesthetics associated with mascots with large heads and eyes, smooth bodies, dressed in childlike clothes, and soft and curved fonts. Stanley Plaza by the Sea, as if handwritten. Typographical variations give sculptural signs a ludic touch. The letters in the I love or I heart Jerusalem are shaped so as to break up straight linearity present in most other signs. The dancing effect, typical of kinetic typography, together with the mixing of serif and sans serif fonts, the asymmetry of the letter M, and the striking angularity of the hard symbol create a dynamic effect, a sense of the words being spoken, imbuing them with additional mood and inflection, making the typeface come alive. 3D place names sculptures use city airport codes, often, though not exclusively, placed at airports, at with a sense of international or adding a sense of international connectivity, sought out by status-conscious elites or those aspiring to be like them. Additional examples of relative playfulness with orthography involve abbreviations, here is Jerusalem again, and replacing of the place name with the telephone area code, as in 852 for Hong Kong. Whiteness stands out in outdoor settings, enhancing signs' visibility. The connotations of whiteness with pure or pristine spaces of upmarket urban areas go hand in hand with their gentrifying, regenerating, or upward mobile aspirations. Relatively stark monochromatic palette projects an understated, quiet, or hushed effect, notwithstanding the visibility of the commonly used red color, with its widespread connotations of love, happiness, and ceremonial uses. Other uses of color may be overly symbolic, as the green color in the Oman sign. Bright or light color palette appears to connote playfulness, likening cities to playgrounds for both children and adults. A quick search online reveals, perhaps quite stereotypically, that many cities and countries associated with Spanish or Hispanic or Latin cultural sphere seem to project an image of energy and excitement with place names in vivid multicolors. Sorry. Situated between color and typography, the sign's materiality brings additional affordances that allow them to realize a wide range of meaning potentials. For the most part, they are solid and sturdy, typically made of aluminium or resin. Some use other materials such as Core-10 steel, suggesting strength and resilience. Timber, reed, and natural or artificial plants suggest a light-hearted, curve-free outlook, suggesting green environmental credentials, or possibly just virtue signaling. Non-traditional materials are sometimes used to make a marketing statement. For example, ZRH is a makeshift sculpture made up of chocolate boxes used as a temporary display at a duty-free shop in Zurich. Temporality can be linked to illumination, bringing the option for the participants to interact with the signs both during the day and at night, or invoking festive mood in the use of Christmas or fairy lights. Some place names include additional lexical items such as I, love, the verb to be, at, or hello, and so on. Also, symbols such as hashtags, heart icons, flags, map pins, or emblematic buildings such as Windsor Castle in Windsor, though the Windsor example does add an element of fluidity to the question whether three-dimensional typography is indeed always three-dimensional. Numerous name sculptures include the hashtag symbol, which has become an indispensable part of social media discourse and communing affiliation. Clearly, the signs making the signs making use of hashtags are meant to make them even more Instagrammable, or as I'm told, more grammable. The I love or heart X formula is a clear reference to the famous Milton Glaser 1977 I love New York logo, which in turn echoes Robert Indiana's love paintings and sculptures that I mentioned before. Thus, place sculptures do not only constitute a global verbal visual register due to their relative spread across the globe, but also due to the intertextual links with prior globally identifiable artworks and design. Now, how much time do I have left?
18 minutes.
Oh, all right, that's far too much. Well, that's okay. All right. No, they all say plenty of time, and then they go over the limit. Okay, I'll try. I'll try. But this is almost the end. Okay. Sculptural place names present a paradox. On the one hand, by virtue of their emplacement, typically at ground level in commercial, high-traffic entertainment or leisure spaces, they invite engagement with social actors or on a relatively equal footing. The prevalent white assumes a degree of classiness and elitism, although the frequent admixture of pastel colors or the downright use of vibrant, highly saturated hues creates for many of them a ludic and playful appeal. The human size of these objects manifests an egalitarian stance, espoused by city authorities and businesses in styling tourist commercial spaces as accessible and inclusive. Yet, by virtue of their emplacement in regenerated, gentrified, or other high-value urban spaces invoking middle-class lifestyles, high property prices, and privileged mobility, these objects contribute to the repertoire of urban signifiers of inequality and social exclusion. As David Harvey put it, the 1980s financial boom in the West, on the one hand, gave rise to the yuppie culture, and I quote, with the accoutrements of gentrification, close attention to symbolic capital, fashion, design, and quality of urban life, while on the other hand, to the plague of homelessness, disempowerment, and impoverishment that engulfed many of the world's cities. Others, such as Sharon Zukin, comment on how gentrification involves entrepreneurial activity, encouraging consumption of authenticity, premised on niche markets such as gourmet foods. Finally, all this aesthetic stylization based on tropes of minimalism, knowingness, cryptic sources and or references, and second-order performativity, spectacle and theatricality is reminiscent of what has been associated with the semiotics of exclusion. I suppose that the analysis of typographic landscapes needs to include the genre of 3D place names as part of this process. Now, normally I'd stop here, but if I have 5 more minutes, I'd like to add a little coda with one more example. However, this one is a contrastive one. Okay. This is a 2012 sculpture, as you can see, called Brudno, by the Danish artist Jens Hanning. The piece is located in the Brudno Sculpture Park. Okay, this is the sign for the park, inaugurated in 2009 in Warsaw. Brudno is a large residential area of public housing in East Warsaw. Its population predominantly working class. The sculpture park, located in the traditional Brudno municipal park, does not yet seem to have had a gentrifying effect on the area, although connecting the area with Warsaw's center by means of an expanding underground may soon change that. The Brudno sculpture is quite unique in my data set. It is the only piece that I have located with a plaque containing information about its title, author, and year of production. This frames the sign as a piece of high art, arguably, rather than a populist fun object. During my visit, sometime in 2014, I did not see any tourists taking selfies. In fact, I did not see any tourists at all, only a few local residents walking around, sitting on benches, and not paying much attention to the artworks around them. At some point, a teenager used the sculpture as a secluded location to smoke a quiet, probably illicit cigarette. The sign is larger than most of my examples, perhaps to match the scale of the park and the massive apartment blocks surrounding it. It is constructed with bricks, a traditional building material whose surface is not as smooth or polished as painted aluminium or resin. Yet, while a bit rougher, its surface does not repel touch, as suggested by the teenager's presence. The oblique strokes of the letters are jagged due to the bricks working like some kind of giant pixels in an enlarged digital image. This again stands in contrast to the perfectly smooth surfaces of the other signs. Finally, the natural color of the terracotta bricks conveys mundane earthiness rather than upmarket stylishness or a vibrant, if somewhat garish, celebratory and festive stance of the other place sculptures. So what makes Brudno art rather than just a fun 3D place name is that it doesn't seem to signify a redevelopment, gentrifying area associated with consumption, performance, and mediatization of self through social media. Hanning's intervention seems to provide local residents with a point of reference of their localness, not a signal for global travelers, digital nomads, or elites seeking connectivity to colonize and appropriate the area, at least not just yet. Okay, I'll stop here. Thank you. Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
I have a question about it's a Latin alphabet. This is the Latin alphabet.
Yes.
This signage.
Yes. Yeah.
Whether the same
Mhm.
sculptural
Yeah.
thing happens with like Cyrillic, other non-alphabetic.
Yeah. Great question. you know, my method, if I can call it like that, is sort of auto-ethnographic. It is, some people call it guerrilla ethnography. It's, as you can imagine and see, my data is largely opportunistic. Okay, I've taken most of the photographs, except a few that I found online. I used to be able to read the Cyrillic alphabet, but that was a long time ago. And I must say that I don't typically, I am quite limited in my own consumption of text or writing. So I normally do not seek out other kind of data. I know it's a major limitation. When I lived in Hong Kong, I would have, I remember a few similar signs which used Chinese ideographs, but I would be not. I would be quite sort of apprehensive about arguing some expertise in that respect. So I think the answer to your question is probably yes, but basically I don't really have any examples to show you right now.
I was just struck that I think that Britain was the only one that had a diacritic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was wondering whether, the use of the Latin alphabet is directly associated with this global.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, possibly. Yes, it's yeah. No, there's clearly, you can see the diacritic there, which normally is a little sort of apostrophe in the over the letter O. It is sort of slightly stylized here. But yeah, it's a good question. I will definitely think about this and see whether I can sort of come up with some sort of examples of that thesis, or maybe counter examples. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, I was wondering, you mentioned the sign in the picture in Amsterdam
Mhm.
that was moved because it didn't fit with the culture of the area. And so my question is, how can we make signs that are more inclusive of these different groups, and then the larger question that will reduce poverty?
Yeah, if I were an urban designer or kind of a municipal worker, I would probably be very tempted to kind of have this conversation. I'm a sort of retired semiotician, so I'm not sure if I have any good answers, but I think my point is to sort of identify a particular, well, to have a discussion of a particular genre of writing and public, and I think there's kind of my idea is to make it somewhat principled in terms of what goes on in cities and other forms of semiotic display. I'd love for homelessness and poverty to be eradicated, but that's a very different conversation, I think. But so I appreciate the sentiment behind your question, but again, I need to plead a slight inadequacy to make it to give a convincing answer.
Very sure.
I think that would be an amazing task for a design student cohort.
Mm.
No? That being said. Okay, I think the first question is in the back, and then I'll come over to you. Yeah.
Thank you. Are you entirely confident in using the word sculpture for these objects? I notice you sometimes reverting to the word sign.
Yes.
Sculpture gives them a level of artistic
Yes.
application
that
they perhaps don't have in terms of
Yes.
ambition
Mhm.
and also cheapness in production.
Yes.
Essentially,
Mhm.
produced an illustrator with an extruded function.
Yeah. I agree completely. I mean, I know that I use these terms quite in a fluid manner, but I try to signal when I use the term sculpture in the sense of quote unquote high art and three-dimensional objects more generally, more including decorative or commemorative ones. I have built up a little collection of what I call language objects, which are sometimes sold in novelty shops as decorative sculptures. These could be little signs made of wood or some other material that you can place on your desk, such as "Friends gather here," okay, or even signs "Home Sweet Home" cross-stitched on a piece of what do you call those objects? They but they go back to 17th century and they have an samplers. Yeah, thank you. So sometimes art I use it broadly and interchangeably with signs. Hopefully, okay. I should probably flag it from the beginning, but to some extent, I'm kind of doing this deliberately, just to all categories are fuzzy and what a lot of artworks. A banana taped up to the wall, is a sculpture, or maybe conceptually these things are kind of fluid.
About putting in those signs, I guess, in environments where they don't really fit with respect to the architecture, the historic setting. Where I work, it's a university with traditional buildings, and at graduation time, when they put large tents to accommodate all the crowds, they'll pull out the sign with the abbreviated
Yes.
the university, great big large one.
Mhm.
And of course, people are really enjoying it, and they take lots of pictures and stuff like that. But then after that time, everything goes down, and it returns to its more solemn state. So perhaps temporariness.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Great point. Thank you. Kristen Thurlow and I have written something about signs at airports, and Kristen is now developing this idea further, writing about kind of temporal signs. Which, especially in airports, you can see when you walk around. There are signs which are stuck against the wall until they are brought out before boarding of planes, and Crispin calls that semiotics of anticipation, or waiting in the wings, and I'm sure a lot of signs are sort of put in storage and then brought out at significant moments when they are meant to be interacted with or photographed. I think this is a very good point. I'm sure this is something to include in my sort of categorization of the semiotics. Thank you for your suggestion.
Last question.
My question is about the temporal nature of how people dwell in the signs, like here. Have you looked at that aspect? Like there's this building in Bulgaria, which is actually in the shape of a D, and it's an office building.
Okay.
And then there are some signs where, like in poorer countries and like in slums and favelas, they actually people live in them.
Yes.
And then of course here people are there for some time, and then so that sort of interaction, is that something you?
My only kind of point of contact. Thank you so much for this question. My only example of that comes close to what you're talking about is some of the signs which seem to invite people's interaction by sort of sitting or standing or sitting on the signs. Amsterdam is one of them. I think Stanley Plaza has got the image has got a mother with a child in the midst of the semiotics. Clearly, to propose for a photograph is very different than to occupy the sign permanently. I don't know if I have encountered or thought. So that's another very good point about signs which are sort of appropriated as living quarters. That's something that I would definitely need to find out about, and I'll try to look up the example that you've mentioned. Is it in Sofia that
I just was looking at it's called Delta Prime. It's in Varna.
Oh, Varna, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Thank you
you.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you.